Welcome to Faith Works Live. Here's your host, Rebecca Haney.
And we're live. See how that works? Faith Works Live is the name of the game, and I am Rebecca Haney. Pleased as punch to be with you. It's always such a joy to be able to talk about Jesus, about things that matter, about how to live free, and how to live, for our Lord and Savior in this crazy old mixed up, dark, chaotic, more than not a little scary world. And I am so blessed to get a chance to talk with you, to sit in this fine studio and breathe the free air of the fine state of Iowa in the best country in the world, in America. No bias here at all. And with my friends like Dan Hudson from Pathway Church here in Johnston. And we get to use your fine facilities on frequent occasion.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for that, for giving us a space for our rebel cause to do what we do.
We're like the resistance up here.
A little.
Hidden in our little studio.
In the upper room.
Yes.
Where more than one world-changing event has taken place in upper rooms, my friend. It's good to talk with you. I know that we've had quite a year, and we've gone through all the spiritual disciplines, so hopefully everybody feels much more disciplined and much more spiritual by the end of this. So that was a really big commitment and a really big series that you did with us, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope it honestly helped people. You tend to go through something like that, and you're like, yeah, and then 6 months later, you're like, wait, what's that again? But that's why they're a discipline, because we tend to, it just kind of, they just drift away, things like fasting and prayer and all the stuff. So
yeah, I was thinking that this morning, actually, because I had struggled with some anger, and when the stress rises, it seems like it's all too easy to just, get snappish or get, snarky. Believe it or not, I can be snarky, Dan.
No, that's I just can't even imagine.
Never couldn't see it, not at all. Two different colors, two different shades. But I had to apologize to my family, and I thought, you know what, my thought this morning as I was cleaning up the kitchen, because I either relax in the evening and clean in the morning, or I, scurry around in the evening, and then I have a peaceful morning. So I'll let you decide which one was wiser. But I was thinking, I should be better at this. I should be farther along than I am by now. After all of these years, I feel like I shouldn't have these stumbles. And then I thought, you know what? That's why it's a daily walk.
Yeah.
And that's why God's mercies are new every morning. And I went from feeling chastened and kind of humbled and a little bit broken to being like, okay, well, maybe he can use me now. Maybe that's exactly where I am right now, and recognizing that he meets me here for that. So those are the thoughts that I have in the dark before breakfast.
And it's not even breakfast yet. Yes.
No. And maybe that was my problem, is I hadn't had my coffee yet.
That could be.
That improves things.
I went out for dinner with my family last night, and I was kind of thinking afterwards, I've transitioned into this. I don't know what I am right now. Like, I'm grandpa for we have one little 3-year-old grandson. I'm still
who
dad.
Is adorable. Yes.
Yeah. But it's like, it's a different role. I used to be like the dad and the fun guy, and like, hey, and everything kind of like, I kept the conversation going. And I thought about, after I left, I thought, man, I don't know if I said very much, but I just kind of sit there, and there are 3 adult women now that are talking, and I'm like waiting for a breath and then everybody has their husbands, and anyway, it's just kind of weird. I thought, I just don't compete. I just don't feel the need to,
Sure.
let me get my opinion in here, on whatever we're talking about, on ornaments or something. And
have you an opinion on ornaments?
You need to know what I think about that. And so I left thinking, I wonder if anybody thought I was in a bad mood or something. I wasn't. I was just like having my little chips and salsa. I was a happy little camper. But anyway, I don't have. That has nothing to do with anything other than the seasons of life. I'm not the young guy anymore. I'm not even the middle-aged guy anymore. I'm not elderly, but I'm pushing closer to that than I am youth. And I don't know. It's just I'm weird. Is this for counseling? Is this? Oh, this is the wrong appointment.
Pull up the couch.
Sorry.
Dan, how do you feel about this?
I looked at my calendar wrong. I thought I was a therapist.
No lie. We actually, before these mics went live, and Ron Carlson, thank you for making that happen, for being awesome and pressing all the buttons and making us sound good. But before Ron turned on our microphones, we were joking that we should do a therapy session with Dan. And where he gives the advice.
Every good therapist really needs therapy. So
that's true. You could be the doctor to the doctor. Yes. You could be the counsel for the counselors.
Yeah.
I like that.
I remember in college, like everybody I knew who was doing counseling degrees, I was like,
There's probably a reason.
Yeah.
I've literally met people that are like, yeah, I studied psychology because I'm so messed up.
Exactly. So,
But, I can relate. That's why I do radio. Cheaper than therapy, folks.
Oh, boy.
Also, we do tend to talk about some pretty interesting things. I know I learn a lot, and I hear back that there are people that also learn, so that's a good thing, too. But I enjoy the idea of you at the microphone listening to everybody's deep-seated worries and trials and problems and saying, well, stop it. Just don't do that.
But just stop it.
Stop it.
But I can't stop it.
And sometimes getting over to scripture, almost like we planned it, there are scriptural commands that are that strong.
Oh, yeah.
And there are lots of times where I was just reading that in James, it says, resist the devil and he will flee from you.
Right.
Like, okay, but what if it's really difficult? Or what if this thing is really tempting? Or what if all these caveats? What if I have, a really good excuse? Or I think this is an important circumstance. And it's just like, nope. Just put this into death. Just resist. Just get it out of the way.
It's so much easier just to open the door and say, "Come on in."
Right.
Yeah. But that's completely opposite of what we're told to do.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes we just overly complicate things,
Yeah.
and we're like, I don't know if it's egocentric or we think, hey, this situation is different because it's me. It's special. It's more challenging, because it's me.
Right.
I'm the one making that decision. But if we were talking to a friend and maybe they gave us that same scenario with the names changed to protect the almost innocent, then it would be an easy situation.
Oh, absolutely.
We could tell them how to fix it like that.
Yeah. Well, we'd say, "Stop it."
Stop it.
Yeah.
He's not that into you. That's what we say. But I think there are scriptural commands that we just make more complicated. And I think, who is it? Was it Elizabeth Elliot, maybe? It might be. It seems like that's right. Where she said one of the greatest indicators of spiritual maturity is the time between hearing and obedience.
Oh, yeah.
So you just don't. I want to say, Elizabeth. I'll put it in the notes if I'm wrong. But that's kind of how I want to be. Since we're wrapping up this conversation about spiritual disciplines, I don't want to be the one who I'm a ponderer. Right. I really like to think about the ins and outs of things. And I like to think about, all the implications, like studying it like a multifaceted jewel. What about this? Or what about that? All the questions. I'm just Job in my everyday life. I'm like, all right, Lord, all the questions. But there are times when we just need to apply. And
Right.
we just need to do it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
To put it into practice. And if we're so busy thinking about studying every single jot and tittle of the law, which is not a bad thing, but because we can learn more of God and his character through his word, but we then actually have to put it into practice.
Right.
And there's something so sweet and simple and that childlike faith where if a child trusts their parents and their parents tell them to do something, I mean, sometimes they ask why, but when
Right,
the
right.
child just says, okay, I trust you, I'm going to do this. That's the most beautiful thing.
Oh, it is.
And that's how I want to be.
Yeah. I read somewhere once, it was a long time ago, so I don't remember the context, but it's something to the effect of like the longest distance we travel is like that 18 inches from your head to the heart when
Yes.
you read the scripture and you're like,
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yes, I cognitively say this is a good idea, but for your heart to engage and say, I want to follow this as opposed to I'm really trying hard. It's like, no, I'm going to because I can't not because I just love Jesus so much. I have to. I have to. And that's a challenge because once you get one thing down, then the next thing falls, and then you're like, I gotta go back over here
Yes.
and do that again, and yeah.
Almost like the devil knows we're not good at this whole multitasking thing.
Right.
I like to think I am. We were talking about that too. I like to think I am, but then in the end, instead of doing all the things at once, I do like half of most of the things. And however you feel about fractions, it doesn't even out.
Doesn't work. And everything just kind of lowers in quality and quantity and everything. So yeah, so much.
It's
for that.
fine. It's above the bare minimum. That's okay.
But I'm really
fine.
busy.
I was very busy today. What did I get done? We're not going to talk about that. There's a difference between busy and productive. I've learned that.
Yeah.
But what were we talking about
I
today?
have no idea.
We were going to talk about This is life. We're doing life together. Isn't
Right.
that what the cool kids do? That's what church is. We're doing life together. Oh, we're going to talk about church. We're going to talk about the, I hear that sucking void sound of a world that has rejected God and his plan and his fellowship and his family. And now, lo and behold, all these problems have cropped up. And I found
Weird.
a fascinating new example of that in no other place than Politico, because that's the arbiters of all truth in our time. But the Surgeon General Vivek Murthy is his name. And we've actually talked about him before, but he has officially declared an epidemic, a health epidemic of loneliness in our country at our time. And I'm hearing that and I nod along. I remember we talked about this at the time a few months ago. And he has taken this analogy so far that he's started to do essentially like a rock star tour. And he's going to major cities. And I don't know if he's coming to us anytime soon. Didn't buy the tickets, but I don't know. Join us on the journey.
Mid-major.
But he's on like this mission to cure loneliness, he says. And he's doing essentially big rock style concerts with musicians, with live music, with drum circles, with all these things in order to help people feel less lonely. And encourage them to get out and have face-to-face connections with real people, to put away their phones, basically. And they have dancing unicorns at these things. Like they have people dress up in giant costumes of unicorns, handing out little paper prescriptions for face-to-face contact, for social interaction. For like 15 minutes of social interaction that's good for your health. And I just can't help but think, government makes everything crazy, number one. Number two, like somebody thought
noticed.
someone at the health department thought this was a good idea.
Dancing unicorns. No, that's
Are my tax dollars being
what is that?
spent on this?
that came out of a meeting somewhere, where they all talked about it and said, "This is good.
This is
Yes.
a good idea. Let's do this. We're not paying for it."
Right?
But no, my other thought is, wow,
Yeah.
look at the vacuum. Look at what has come because we've rejected. Like, could you imagine if you had maybe a group of people that really cared about you, that, you could meet face to face in person and you were all aiming towards this higher goal and you could all share encouragement with each other. Maybe there was some music. Maybe you could put out your heart's cry and concern. Maybe once
like
a week.
grocery store. No?
That wasn't what I was thinking of.
Oh.
But fewer cash registers. But I was thinking of, let's try again.
Oh, what else could? Wow. I mean,
Not a dentist's office either.
daycare centers.
Yeah, maybe.
They have dancing unicorns. Maybe.
Could it be?
It could be. I mean, not the church. I mean,
What? What'd you say?
What? Wait.
Could it be
That seems we do a lot of those
the
things.
church? Yeah.
There's several of those things we do. Wow, wait a minute. That would have saved a lot of tax dollars.
And we'd be telling them the truth instead of handing out prescriptions with dancing unicorns.
Maybe the prescription was like, hey, go to church. Probably not. Probably not.
If only. Only.
I have this image now. I mean, is it a big street party or something? Or
think
do they
so.
rent like a room?
So if you look at the party, it's like a concert level crowd, and they've got
Yeah.
people that are sitting in row, like in an auditorium, and they've got all their cell phones out so that they can do the light thing, so they can raise the light up.
So there are people who are used to being out in settings like this who maybe
Apparently
aren't
so.
lonely right now.
Apparently so.
Like maybe the people they attracted are not the ones that are in their apartments alone. I'm just wondering if
I don't know,
maybe
maybe.
they missed their target.
Well, there are still people who are wearing masks today and look like, the human contact is a virus. So I don't know. I pray for those people.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure exactly, but I know that so the government can take any good idea and make it crazy. We know that. But this is now like the highest health authority in America is saying, yes, we have a problem.
Wait, are these the people who said we had a pandemic a couple years ago?
Yes.
Okay.
That's true.
Okay.
Same
Just
people.
wondering.
So, grain of salt.
Just looking for credibility, that's all.
Confirm.
So
But I would agree with the diagnosis that we do have a loneliness epidemic.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a real issue. And there are many people, especially if you think about so at the very young and the very old. But I mean, anywhere within that spectrum, we
Yeah.
all struggle with loneliness from time to time.
Sure.
But it's when you see the young kids that are not socializing with one another, and you see older people that feel like, nobody cares whether or not I'm here, and maybe they're more shut in, less mobile, so they don't have all those options. You literally used to have places where people can go hang out. A lot of the malls and a lot of the public places where they used to be social hubs have gone online. And we have
Yeah.
virtual reality everything. So people aren't really looking anyone else in the eye or hearing a real human voice much of the time. They're let alone feeling a touch of like, a nice warm handshake or a pat on the back, anything like that. How many hugs are we supposed to have in a day in order to survive? Is something like 5 or 6 hugs is ideal. And just, I mean, there are people that do not feel kind human contact for weeks or months.
Yeah, yeah, and that causes you, I think, to crave it. So I think they're really accurate on the loneliness thing, and it's like we're confused, like we've forgotten. How weird is it that the few months of the COVID thing, and that's been 3 years ago now, right? But we're still like talking about like no one engaged their brain afterwards. Like you said, some people are still wearing masks. I've seen people like alone in a car, like, dude,
mask.
It's so much. Yeah, I'm going, wait. I mean, but that's, I'm trying not to be judgmental on that. But I think
I'll judge for you.
We don't know how to interact anymore.
Yeah.
And so we've stopped going to church. Many have.
Yeah.
We've stopped, like I said, going to the malls, doing the things, all the social things. We are social people. We're made to be together and live in community. And like, we don't know how to anymore. And so how is a dancing unicorn for one night? That's like someone who's on a starvation thing. They say, we're going to take you to a buffet.
Yeah.
And then, okay, well, what about tomorrow? There wasn't anything real there. I just had one meal and felt sick because I had too much to eat.
Sure, exactly.
It's like what we need are relationships that are maintained and growing and thriving and real. And I can sit down and have a conversation and pour out my soul to someone. You're not going to pour your soul out to the dancing unicorn who
Precisely.
gave you a piece of paper saying, go talk to people. And not that have fun, whatever. Go dance with the unicorn.
It's just the phrase "dancing unicorn" that's so funny. I'm not laughing at the concept. Go ahead.
But man, obviously I go to church. I have all these things. So we have a small group that we're part of, and just a few days ago we took off on a Friday morning and went to Branson, Missouri, and spent 2 nights. I only stayed one because some of us have to preach for a living, so I came back while all my pagan friends were out on a Sunday in Branson. But
Not that we're judging.
They weren't pagan. What a fun time that was. We have these shared experience now. We laughed. We ate together. We I don't know if we cried, but we just enjoyed ourselves. And man, we just need that rather than a quick fix. I mean, this is just a little weekend event, but this thing you're talking about with the government is a little 2-hour, unicorn dance. I don't know. We got to get together, and the church definitely is a place where that can happen.
Right.
But even then, you got to engage.
Right, and it's real, and that's the thing, is there's the potential for that deep connection there, whereas there really isn't for a bunch of people that are similarly gathered, because there is this, I think, kind of, it's not really only conservative, but there's like this red pill movement awareness, people that are more philosophically interested in Christianity and of the morals of the Western civilization and that kind of resurgence, but they tend to do it from a secular framework. And they'll talk about the virtues and benefits of church in general from like a psychological perspective. And they'll say, well, it's good for all of us to be gathering together and aiming upward. And we all are called, there's accountability and there's all these things. I'm like, yes, but then you're removing yes, all of those things, but also the heartbeat for why we're here is we worship a risen Savior who is Christ the Lord, who took us from death to life, who has defeated death, and now we serve him with every living moment because he is worthy and he's changed us. Everything about us is different, and we draw together closer to one another in love because we love him and because he loves us. And so there's like the whole reason for being, the whole author and finisher of our faith is missing in that context. So seeing this actually doesn't surprise me because we are kind of in that neo-pagan era, and the government is trying to create a church. The government is trying to, tax dollars notwithstanding, folks.
The synthetic church experience without the spirit.
How many worship, quote unquote, services are out there on a weekly basis that are just like, we're going to have nice music or smoke machines, dim the lights, we're going to have a warm, happy feeling. Do they actually praise Jesus? Are they there to worship Jesus, or are they there to kind of give somebody a fun experience? Those are two different things. That kind of like power of positive thinking in the seeker-friendly movement, that you never challenge anything. You're not calling out sin. You're not doing any of those, those direct commands, for example, other than maybe to give. But that it rings all too hollow, but it's all too true. I think for many people, their experience of religion is not that different, perhaps, from this sort of empty, what I see as this empty, hollow imitation that the government's trying to concoct, because maybe we've removed the whole reason that we're meeting together as a church anyway. Am I off base?
No, I don't think so. Because like the secular thing of this, the purpose is to like improve yourself. It's me,
feel good.
me focused.
You feel bad. Here, all these people around you can help you feel good. So now you feel good.
Now you're feeling good. You're bettering yourself. It's self-improvement, whatever. It's achieve your goals, whatever. And some of that happens within the church context, but it's more about I want to be like Jesus as opposed to I want to fulfill all of my, internal happiness goals or whatever. It's just you find joy by serving Jesus. You find what did Jesus say in the Sermon on the Mount? Blessed are those who do this and that, and those who mourn. They'll be comforted. I'm not reading them all. This happiness, this joy that comes from pursuing God. Is completely missed in a secular thing. It's pursuing self there.
Yeah.
And we all do that to an extent, but that's all it is. Yeah, it's very void. Mm-hmm. I remember years ago, I don't know if it's still happening. I should look this up sometime, that there was a movement they were trying to make like atheist churches where they took the whole format of a church service, and they sang and they did things and shared whatever thoughts instead of prayers. And I remember thinking at the time reading that, like, wow, how depressing.
Yes, exactly.
Because honestly, the church service isn't everything. Mm-hmm. It's key and it's critical and it's a big part of our faith. But it's the spirit behind it. It's the relationships behind it. It's the discipleship going on the side that makes it all happen. Because man, I've been to some really boring church services, but I'm so glad I went because there was something deeper than like I don't want to get into that song or. Sure, it's moving slow, or whatever.
Sure.
And you take out the spiritual thing. All that matters is how you felt about it. My whole day was ruined because I don't even like those songs. They did polka today, and I'm more of a country singer, or whatever.
I want to see an all polka church service right now. There is a demographic for that.
It probably is. We used to have a guy who would play the accordion once in a while. Just
really,
it's like kind of a rock out on. It's like, wow, you're rocking the accordion, but it was kind of fun.
Do all for the glory of God, man. If it's the squeeze box,
right.
just keep praising.
Oh,
where were we?
I don't know. I just got lost in the accordion there.
As we so often do.
Yes,
how many of us have said that before? Probably no one. But I guess the ridiculousness of the whole dancing unicorn business and saying this is what the government thinks is an imitation church. Like, this is what's going to fix the problem. And maybe they've diagnosed something correctly or had a hand in exacerbating that problem. See, government solutions tend to make things worse, I find.
Yeah, true.
But in this case, it's like they're searching about for what I think is a legitimate problem. They're looking for some kind of answer. And they've come up with this pale imitation of what, might fulfill the human soul. And I look at that and I think of actual church brothers and sisters, experiences that I have had where I am at my darkest, I'm at my worst, struggling in hospital rooms, struggling, like the real trials that I have been through. I have seen God show up through his people. Over and over again. I've felt the love. I have been helped in practical ways. They've given our family money and food and things that, we weren't sure how we were going to make ends meet. I've seen that happen. I've been able to, thankfully be a part of returning that blessing to others as well when we were able to. So it's something that we've seen time and time again. People that showed up to, when we were in the hospital and I couldn't go pick up the kids, they helped to watch the kiddos. And I didn't, even expect that, but they loved us and our family because of that common bond enough to step in. And I've seen that time and time again across, even just in my life experience, but throughout history. That's the strength of a real common bond, a real oneness. And that's what Jesus said, is that they will know, the whole world will find something unique about you. They will stop and stare and look, oh my goodness, they love each other. I don't know about this whole God business, but I know that's different. That's out of this world. The way that you guys act to each other and take care of each other and love each other in unity, that is something the world cannot provide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, other than a cheap imitation with dancing unicorns.
It's funny every time. I know. I don't know why. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't know.
All right. Well, no one pays me to work at the White House, clearly. Not after this segment.
But and maybe sometimes the church misses the mark a little bit here too, because
True.
we will also go for the imitation sometimes, because that will often attract the people.
Yeah.
And so we'll have all kinds of stimulus and
Sure.
I guess it's stimuli, isn't it? When it's
It would
plural?
be, yes.
Yeah. And
Latin 101.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, isn't terrible and bad. I mean, we are people of all five senses and everything, but if that is your push, and I always think, man, the early church prayed and the building was shaken. I don't think it was because the bass was turned up, and
Right?
It was a
Yeah.
spiritual thing going on. God, the Holy Spirit showed up, and God did some amazing things in the lives and through the lives of the people. And we can kind of miss that because we're chasing after the imitation, And so we have to be careful as well. And I say that speaking to myself, because I'm always wanting the event to be, fantastic and wonderful and amazing and sparkly, and then I push back to myself. It's like, nope, let's take the sparkles out, and
That's a challenge.
Yeah.
And a pathway. And you guys have great events. And you really have been effective in community outreach and all these things you bring in the kids and the families and you have fun stuff for them to do. All of that can be glorifying to God. I don't mean to say otherwise.
Yeah.
But I know that to say, especially the contrast between what the world sees as the need and the answer to the need. And I think all of that is hollow without Jesus.
Yeah.
And the only way that the more, not performative elements, but the more like spectacle and the more fun stuff that's out there that you can unite people around, that's all well and good to unite around, something, some charity, some event, some feel good kind of thing. But it doesn't make an eternal difference without Christ. And the reason we have the reason for this season there, otherwise it's just about personal feelings. Like you were saying, it's about self-fulfillment when really that's not going to go anywhere. That's not going to work, 10 minutes later when you feel bad again, when you have those negative thoughts. There has to be an eternal answer for this eternal yearning that we have. And the answer is Christ. And that's what the church has that nobody else can provide.
Yeah. We started doing something. This is even beyond maybe reversing instead of what can I receive, but what can I give? Kind of helps. We started doing this homeless outreach every 2 weeks. We go on a Saturday morning. We provide food, and in the summertime we were doing grilling, which is really kind of fun. Having them come in, like, wow, you just cooked a hamburger for me, and it was fresh off the grill, and they were like, oh, it was so cool. And the conversations. These are people living in tents that are pretty lonely too. So we have our crew that shows up, that there's a bond formed as they're serving people. And then there's a bond formed between, we know some of the names now of some of the homeless. Some will come and go, but there's a core that we know now. We met a guy a couple weeks ago who has a wife who's 4 months pregnant. And I'm thinking, man, you're sleeping in a tent by the river in Des Moines, Iowa. That's awful. And what was my point of that? I don't know. It's just been cool to see the group on our side that's growing together. We're in this mission, we're accomplishing something, and we're representing Jesus, and it's just cool to see what God's doing to that. But it's cool to see those connections, just to know somebody cares, But even more than that, we're not just handing something and running off. I can say, hey, Mike, how is your back? Because 2 weeks ago you were sore, and to hear your name. I suppose maybe we'll try the dancing unicorn next week and see if
Let me know.
have a better response.
You know how that goes. Well, and just to know that, if you're in that situation, a lot of times, having talked with people who have been, and people who minister as well, Hope Ministries folks, and we have a good relationship there too. But they say there's so much that we take for granted. If you're in a house with a family, you're rich in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And to say that, you don't know if any human being is going to make eye contact with you that day.
Right.
That's deadly. If you go through day after day of not only struggling for those physical needs, it is a physical need to see another human being and look them in the eyes and look at them with kindness, to hear your name spoken, to know, hey, I'm valued. Just even to have that little indication of worth. I think that's part of why God created us for a relationship. He put us in relationship with himself and then with one another. And to starve people of that has been one of the cruelest things that I've ever seen seen done on a worldwide level. That's my soapbox, and I can put it away for another day because it's not holly or jolly. But we've done that, and then we look around and wonder, well, why are we so lonely? Why are we so depressed? Why does everybody want some sort of pill or chemical in order to figure out how to deal with this? Because it is that serious. Why has self harm and suicide ideation and all of those things, they've gone up with depression, all of those things, people living with that type of just a hellish trap.
Yeah.
Is what it is. But we've deprived one another of these simple gestures of love and respect and recognition. And God never designed for his people to be that way. No. And that's where I think the church can really shine. And it doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take a big fancy service or production or anything like that. In fact, it's often more effective if it's just one person that's willing to go visit you, that's willing to find out, what kind of, do you like to drink coffee? Do you like to drink tea? Like what would be a blessing to you? How can we connect? Maybe I can take you out for a sandwich. Maybe we can, I can cook a meal. Maybe I can help you clean your house and we can talk because we've all got littles and they're all running around underfoot. So maybe that's a helpful thing to you. Spitballing here from experience, but especially people, I will say, as this thought comes to me, especially people who are in maybe a retirement phase of life that have a little more time and that have walked through some of those tough roads to say, just to be willing to offer the wealth and the wisdom and the perspective and the grounded faith that you have to someone who's maybe stuck and going through it. Maybe they haven't reached out or they don't think they can, but that's just an opportunity if you are somebody that has a little more time to be able to connect and to find intentional ways to think of one person in your church or in your neighborhood that you can reach out to and just offer that hand of friendship, because somebody has to go first. So maybe you can be that friend to somebody. And I mean, maybe it feels a little awkward or not. I've never had a problem with feeling awkward.
That's my middle name.
You want someone to go first? I'll go first. Go ahead. Sure thing. I got you. But just be willing to go first, to offer that hand of friendship. I think that's huge. Whether or not that other person's a Christian, but especially to building relationships within the household of faith. We got to start somewhere.
Yeah. And you know what? Like the church is, the world is filled with, I just lost the word as I was saying it. We're to ourselves.
Isolation
is what I was trying to say.
Oh, introverts, yes.
And you don't have to be all extroverted. You don't have to like get in people's grill and
it's a hard cross to bear.
Coffee,
it's a hard cross to bear.
It is, but I've often tried to coach people, but within the church context, like, hey, just say hello. That's where it starts, and then let it go naturally. You don't have to come up. I need the first 5 sentences. It's not a football game. You don't have a game plan. How you doing? Oh, blah blah blah. Well, then respond.
Wait for the silence.
It's like I don't know what to say. Well, I mean, it's not that hard.
Do you think? Okay, random observation. Do you think that maybe one of the reasons that we're afraid to work or that we just get self-conscious about those things is that we're afraid of what walking by the Spirit might actually look like? Because I think we program and we schedule and we have to have a plan. It has to be controlled. And then we're kind of like, oh, well, that was a little flat. I'm like, no kidding. You didn't invite God's Spirit literally to work through you when he has the standing invitation to be like, I will use you in supernatural ways. And you're like, no, thanks. I got this one.
I got to get the kids to soccer practice. I won't have time for that.
I don't have time.
A simple hello and a handshake. Right. I'm out.
How are you? One syllable. Good.
Yeah, good. Move on.
I'm serious.
Maybe so. I mean,
I go through that with my own. I'm preaching to myself because I like to have a plan and I like things to go according to plan. And if they don't, but it's when I let go of those reins that I've finally been able to see. Still a work in progress, but I've finally been able to see. Kind of like today, I had a lot of plans for the way I thought today would go, and there were things that did and things that didn't.
Right.
And as I was looking at the clock and looking at the flow of the day and thinking, you know what, that's okay. I need to be here and I need to do this thing, but I can use this time in a different way. And it just felt I was much more at peace, just being able to accept, okay, well, the things that God needs me to do, I will do. I will have time to do the necessary things. I'll prioritize what's most important, and that's going to be good. And it just feels so much better instead of rushing around trying to, get all stressed out and then get angry at people that I'm supposed to be loving.
Right.
Why won't you let me love you?
You have to fit in my box so I can love you.
Fit in my schedule.
The way I want.
Yes.
Yes.
From 10 to 2, I am open.
So, we've talked before, I take a team to Africa every year, and it was so fun about that. Part of my challenge is, like, right now we're starting to meet we're heading in July. So I'm trying to educate people, because we get all these type A personalities, and they want to, they plan. And I say, we're going to plan. But be ready to throw literally everything out the second we get there, or not. And it's so hard for people to grasp until you get there and you go, like, you know what? Because there's nothing, like, we're over there. There's nothing. It's like there is no soccer practice. There's no, all of a sudden everything is free.
Yeah.
And we're doing what happens when it happens. And it's fun. By the end of the 2 weeks, people are like, that wasn't so bad. But they click into it pretty quick, though, when we get back. But it's a good experience. I wish I try to be a little more like that here, because, why limit God?
Yes.
Why close him off and give him parameters? He's supposed to give me the parameters.
Sure.
Yeah.
He's not something to put on a to-do list.
Yeah.
It's not like we just check off, okay, time with God, done. It's that we can be effective if we're moving at if we're following him, like we're moving at his discretion. And like we were talking about, that process of obedience and that pattern and the rhythm of our life, I think we have to be flexible, which is, again, hard for me to do, because I like my schedules and I like that control and feeling like I am the master of my destiny.
Right.
But wait, actually, that's backwards, isn't it? And making space for people, and making space to serve and to hear the things, whatever divine, people use the phrase divine appointments.
Yeah.
And I think the hand of providence does move us into position, into places where, if we're open, he gives us opportunities. And that's what those little things are, ways that we can be used in that ripple into eternity. These can be the big things. Like, whatever we had planned on our schedule may not really be the big thing in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
And yet there are people that are in heaven because somebody made time to really listen and to talk with them. And that began something and planted a seed in their heart to bring them closer to Jesus. And that's the perspective I need to keep.
That's like, Philip, who is just he had his daily planner out, and he had a great plan for the day. And God said, I want you to go down to this road and hang out, and you'll know what to do. And then there's this eunuch going by. He's like, whoa, go talk to him? And someone made it into heaven because he got distracted. I mean, I had a professor in college tell us to always schedule at least 2 hours a day for distractions. And it was so hard for me to figure out how. It still is. Because I'd be like, okay, from 2 to 4, distraction. Like, so you sit there staring at the wall going, well, there's no distraction, so I guess I'll do something. But of course, that's not what he meant. But to have the flexibility to learn to have the wisdom to go through an open door that God provides, or if God closes the door, maybe it's because he wanted it closed, but it's on my calendar, it's on my schedule, I have to do it. Because maybe God has a better plan for you that you didn't know about.
Very
and
true.
Go with the flow, go with the Spirit, and let him guide you. And boy, that's hard to do over and over and over, day after day after day. I think I'm better than I used to be, but yeah.
Can you imagine once we get to eternity and we're no longer bound by time?
Yeah.
Just the difference that simple. It's almost impossible for me to think up an existence without time. Because every day I look at my clock, I'm like, okay, it's time to get up. It's time to go do this. And I need to make breakfast, and I need to, get this ready for the kids. And there's all these things we need to do. And we have school assignments, and we have, lunch rush, and I've got to go do this errand or that errand before this time. It's all bound by time.
Yep.
If you no longer have that limitation, just the difference that makes in your entire mindset, what else would you be focused on when that's gone away? And maybe that's part of that whole heavenly mindset that God still needs to develop in me.
Right.
But you look at the process maybe of the growing of the fruit. You look at continuing the like where everything is. And if you don't have to take this time out or that time out, it's not about being distracted, because you could always focus on that work, presumably on the real me. I don't know. That's something that boggles my mind.
Yeah.
That God is unbound by time, and that someday we, who even though we have a beginning, will have no end in him, that we won't have to be faced with those struggles and that stress anymore, and yet we'll always be able to focus on what he wants us to do. Mm-hmm. That's amazing to me. I don't think people are like rushing around in heaven trying to get to the business meeting.
I got something to do. Casserole's burning. I got to go.
Right, exactly. The Casseroles Never Burn in Heaven by Irma Bombeck.
I think also along that line, maybe that's part of the childlike faith that Jesus talked about, because children don't seem to be too worried about. We teach them to get concerned about time.
Yeah.
they wake up and they're happy playing with their trucks or tea sets or whatever it is they're doing. And then it's like, no, we got to go. And they're like, okay, I guess mom's a little cranky. We just got to go. And they go do their thing, but then they just do their thing,
right. But I'm a superhero, right? I don't have time for dinner. I'm a superhero now.
Yeah. Can't you see my cape?
Yes. Oh, man, we have 2 superheroes at our house. I got them like craft aprons because they like to paint and they like to do messy stuff. We had we were making cookies and we had frosting everywhere. That's a cleaning project for another day. But they had aprons and then they turned them around to make them into capes. So of course that's what they saw. Yeah. So we had a blue apron and a yellow apron. Oh, so nice. They were super blue and super yellow and they were running around. And my son, I was trying to get 48 things done at once as I want to do and none of them well. But I was a little stressed out because I was trying, again, got a little frustrated, had to apologize. But he had Jeremiah had these little tiny hangers, coat hangers in his hand. And he's like, these are the tools. These are superhero weapons. And so he gave them to me and my apron was green. He's like, here, I want you to be super green. Aww. And I just thought maybe that's just a mom moment and it was only sweet to me. But yes, son, I can make time from 5 dozen cookies to hold this coat hanger and pretend to be a superhero mom with you. I can do that.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was a connection. That was the greater thing in that moment rather than the cookies, which I did manage to get done. Whether or not Martha Stewart is proud of me is another thing, but that's okay.
The kids will eat them just fine.
Exactly. She doesn't have to eat them.
They don't care.
She doesn't like them. She doesn't have to eat them. That's fine. The kids will down them in 2 seconds flat. So.
Right.
Oh man, we still haven't taken a break, Ron. I'm sorry. Maybe I should. Not really, he said. When do I ever make things easy for Ron? God bless Ron Carlson. Everybody pray for Ron because I don't make it easy on him, but he does an excellent job no matter what. So thank you, Ron. Thank you for Dan Hudson from Pathway Church in Johnston. Thank you for lending us this fine studio space. As I mentioned before, we're filming live from Pathway. And we will take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll talk about how to have spiritual conversations with non-Christians. And, who knows what else? We never talked with you about the Satanist altar at the Iowa State Capitol.
No.
We could get your thoughts on that real quick, time permitting.
I debate myself on that one. So.
Ooh, okay. Well, let us into that debate. That's a tease. When we return, you're listening to FaithWorks Live. There's no better time than now to stand for life. And you can stand with Iowa's original pro-life organization, Pulse for Life. They're the longest standing nonprofit pro-life organization in Iowa, and they are dedicated to informing, educating, and inspiring a new generation to value the sanctity of all human life, from fertilization until natural death. They serve at the State House. They educate in classrooms, at events. They proudly serve on the coalition of pro-life leaders. They are on the front lines of the battle against this throwaway culture of death that we see all around us, and we are winning ground. Hearts and minds are changing, and the pro-life movement is continuing to grow. And you can be a part of the exciting things that are happening right here in our own backyard at pulseforlife.org and get your finger on the pro-life pulse. Sign up for their newsletter, find ways that you can make a difference, and how you can change hearts and minds with their pro-life apologetics course. pulseforlife.org. Hey, what's for dinner? If you're like me, I hear that 15 times a day. And fortunately, I have a plan. It's typically Anonymous beef at our house. We are such big fans of Anonymous beef at the Haney home because it's just great quality beef. There's no steroids or antibiotics. It's naturally raised butcher beef. They sell by the quarter, the half, or the whole, and they support your local meat lockers, so they can help you get it processed in a way that works for you. In this economy, it's good to have affordable options for your meat. And if you're willing to make a good investment in your nutrition for a healthy menu plan, I highly recommend Anonymous Beef. Contact Dave and Mary Lynn at anonymousbeef.com. They welcome your questions. They'll help get you on the schedule. They have locker dates coming up. Don't wait. Secure your locker date today. Go to anonymousbeef.com. That's OHNEMUS beef.com. In today's world, security has never been more vital. And at FaithWorks Live, we're proud to partner with VeriGuard Security. It's a professional physical security service, and they're really raising the bar in security and private investigations. Whether you need a team of professional officers to protect what you have worked hard to build, or their mobile security units for multiple properties or large locations, from business or corporate properties to your home or neighborhood. Perhaps you've got an event coming up. They secure quality security coverage for events large and small because it's about peace of mind and protecting you, your family, your team, and your property. Settle for nothing less than the best when it comes to your security. You shouldn't have to compromise. When it comes to security, you can trust VeriGuard. Contact them today at verigard.us. That's VARA guard.us. For security service, you can trust VeriGuard. When a woman faces an unplanned pregnancy, every possible emotion goes through her head. Where can she go for help and for hope? She can go to Intervisions. Here in our metro, we have 2 healthcare clinics where she will find hope and help. From free pregnancy testing and STD testing to free ultrasounds, Intervision serves women and men with STDs who find themselves in vulnerable situations. They're completely free of charge because of generous donations from folks like you. And their medical clinics help their patients get all the information that they deserve that empowers them to make life-affirming decisions. That's what they do at Intervisions Healthcare Clinics right here in Des Moines. Learn more at intervisionshealthcare.org. That's intervisionshealthcare.org. And you can call 24 hours a day at 515-440-CARE. That's 515-440-2273. We are here on FaithWorks Live, and I'm about to hear a debate that Dan's been having with himself about how to, just the whole situation of the Satanist altar at the Iowa State Capitol, now decapitated and removed, which, like I said, part of me wants to just give that guy like a profile in courage for taking a baseball bat to the image of Satan in the State House. And another part of me is like, yeah, but it was going to come down tomorrow anyway. Right. So I don't know. I don't know about all that. But Dan has been debating this subject, and I'm sure he has some excellent insights. And so what are your thoughts?
Yeah, here's my problem. I haven't landed anywhere because I've been debating myself, right?
Okay.
I haven't had really conversations with anyone out loud, so my head has all kinds of internal voices. Like on one hand, I'm the same way. I want to say, well, yeah, like the prophets of old. There we go.
Like modern day Elijah, just tearing down the Baals. And
Yep. And then I quickly tell myself, yes, but we're not Israel. And we're not the people of God. And we're a civil.
Are you sure?
I mean, well,
I have heard differently.
As a country, we are not. Mm-hmm. We are a civil group of people with multiple things. I mean,
okay, that's a good distinction. For real, that's a good distinction to make.
Yeah. I mean, so I mean, that makes it just vandalism. And then I did go back and forth. Like I said, I go back and forth with myself. It's like, well, so it was in Israel too. But it was good. It was like clean this stuff out.
Yes.
But that they were collectively the people of God. We are not collectively the people of God. So the Satanist gets to be a Satanist. My job is to disciple them and convert them to Jesus, and they'll tear their own altar down.
Yeah.
That's my debate internally.
Yeah.
And then I think, okay, that only escalates things too. Because then you'll have like, well, why aren't they ripping the heads off of every Jesus in every nativity scene? And
I'm sure some people will, yeah.
Yeah. Because, those Christians, blah, blah, blah. And I think, well, they can do what they do. Again, that's between them and God. They can do what they want. But I don't know. That's where I haven't come up with where do I really stand? I guess, personally, I would not cut off the head of an idol in the state capitol that has a permit that the government says, yes, you can be here, and you get 2 weeks or whatever it was. Like you said, tomorrow's going down anyway. It's like, okay. It's not really Satan, it's an empty idol. Yeah. However, there's power behind, there's spiritual forces behind that stuff. So that's why I say I twist and turn and debate myself. I've not won yet, so I don't know what side of me has won in this. other than I would say we are in a time and culture where we are going to see more and more actual demonic activity because we keep summoning demons to come.
Right.
Didn't we talk a few weeks ago about in a Minnesota library that like had a summon the demons thing?
Yes.
What's this idol all about? Summoning Satan?
Cosmo just did a heinous feature piece on abortion, on a woman who went through a Satanist abortion. Oh. And so now they're clinging to these vestiges of again, talking about a false imitation. So in the darkest forms, the Satanists take on this religious connotation to do things like abortion. And they say, well, you can't interfere with it because it's religious. This is critical to my religion. We have to maintain abortion. And there are literally like rituals that they teach people to do, faux rituals or real whatever,
sure, yeah.
And the like lighting candles and do like these chants and whatever,
Sacrificing
and
the
take
Moloch,
the medication, right? And do it's literally what's happening. Whether or not people take it seriously, whether or not they realize that. I mean, people can play with the Ouija boards and whatever they want to, but there are real demonic forces
They're
that
toying
use
with things.
that.
Yeah.
And you can't ever play with that darkness. But here, when it's in the state, I think it is so powerful because of how visual it was. And people reacted to it in a way that they hadn't very strongly. So it did produce a lot of good things. You're going to hear on our show I was at the prayer rally at the Capitol, which was hugely well attended because of that,
cool.
kind of in contrast to that. So both the forces of darkness and the forces of light are out in force. And we ought to be, because there's no middle ground. So this is a good reminder that there's no middle ground, I think. And really quick, because I said that we would, because I know Ron wants me to be out on time, and I will try to do that as a gift for him. Dan, I did see a really interesting news from George Barna, that does research on spiritual things and worldview, and he's one of the best in that area, most longstanding. And he did a fun little piece, three things to consider during spiritual conversations with non-Christians. And that is interesting that I'm meeting more and more people that have no Christian background whatsoever. Like they didn't go to Sunday school. They don't know what the 10 Commandments are. God bless you. I mean, I love these people. But it's so different from how I was raised and my assumptions growing up in little Midwestern towns where everybody kind of goes to church or they at least know about Jesus. But there are many people that even though they would say, sure, I believe in God or I believe in something generally good, they have no biblical background whatsoever. And he has found that 74% of respondents would like to grow spiritually when they're asked. And 44% say they're more open to God today than they were before the pandemic, which I find kind of fascinating too. Yeah. And so he's saying there is as much darkness as we see, there's also a level of spiritual openness for people that were either raised Christian and walked away, or people that have no association with faith whatsoever, but say they would go to church if they were asked. They would want to talk about these things. They are aware and open spiritually. And he gives some ideas about how to communicate that. He says, look for common ground with someone who is spiritually open, even though, they might not know who Jesus is. They still care, and you're looking for openness and try to build relationships. His second point is to listen well, that there's a give and take for conversations. It's not just like
you're not there to preach
oriented, this is here's my plan, here's my agenda, you just sign on to it. No, you're actually getting to know that person and listening to them as much or even more than you talk about where they're coming from. And then the third point that he has is that actions speak louder than words. So you have to treat people well. You have to embody Jesus. Imagine that. You have to live like Christ in that time. And sometimes, as much as repent is an important biblical concept, you don't always lead with that. Sometimes you just listen and get to know what that other person has to say and then share the heart of God with them. It comes through in your actions.
Yeah, perfect. I think what we do is we psych ourselves up with oh no, they're the unbeliever, the unspiritual. We label them, and all of a sudden we have to come up with techniques. And I quit doing evangelism training. I used to do that once a year. We'd have a class, and I quit doing that years ago because it just made people targets rather than people. It's guess what? You're just talking to a person. Yeah. And let
which is scary enough as it is for some of us.
Right. But just treat them like normal human beings without an agenda. I mean, obviously you're looking for open doors. You're looking to help them, not to put a notch in your belt. I want another one. You're wanting to help them. And so, just be natural. And those are perfect things. Listen. People know when you're not listening, when you're just trying to get on to your next point. Yeah. Next step on my outline here, I need to let you know repentance.
Right.
They know. So let it be natural. Let the Spirit guide you. And this is an exciting time. It's all the darkness we talk about, like you say, that we're living the book of Acts right now. The book of Acts, some really cool things happened. In the midst of some really terrible things happening.
Yes.
The Spirit of God, there was light in darkness. I mean, the light shines in darkness. Guess who we are? The light, right?
Yes.
Go be light.
Love that.
Go be light. So, yeah.
I can't say anything better than that. Dan Hudson, thank you so much for a wonderful year of contributions. I mean, this has
been fun. It's been fast.
It's been fascinating. I've learned so much. I've grown. Thank you for the challenge. Thank you for the accountability. Thank you for all the great spiritual teaching that you're doing. And keep up the good work, brother.
Will do.
Thanks so much. Not that you needed me to say that, but,
I will.
This has been therapy for both of us. We need the affirmation.
Yeah.
I'll send you the bill. And Ron Carlson, thank you again so much for your excellent production work. Thank you for listening, for being a part of the show. Thank you for sharing the show. So it's really cool to hear from people who are like, yeah, I passed this on to a friend and it helped them because I thought they would like to hear it. Yes, absolutely. Score one. That's one more. We got one. Wherever you hear your podcasts, we can be found. We're trying to get the word out to more and more people. We love our state. We love our country. And I can see good things on the horizon. Ultimately, yes, there's a lot of darkness out there, but the darkness has never been able to overcome the light as it shines, and it will continue to shine. We are the light of the world, and so it's just our job to shine. That's all we got to do. Not always easy, but it is simple. So that's what we're called to do, and that's what we intend to do as long as there's a microphone in front of our face, as long as God wills. And thank you for making that possible. So until next time, we have a mission, which is to love God, to serve people, and to live free. Thanks for being a part of Faith Works Live.